The guest speaker for this session is Mr. P.S. Karthigeyan, an IFS officer of 2004 batch. Mr. Karthigeyan has held various positions in Syria, Maldives, and currently is the Deputy High Commissioner for India in Australia. Mr. Karthigeyan, known for making a difference in whatever post he has held. He was also a regional passport officer in Bengaluru. When he was in Bangalore, he was instrumental in bringing the country's first post office passport seva kendra. And definitely it's also a probable UPSC question. Mr. Karthigeyan is currently in Australia. The reason is India and Australia are crucial allies, and day by day our friendship is growing. And you also know that there is one Quad group where India and Australia are members. So keeping that in mind, he was sent to Australia, and he was also briefly the High Commissioner in charge in Australia. Mr. P.S. Karthigeyan is known for helping the non-residential Indians in whichever country he was posted. And recently he was also in news in bringing some 700-year-old artifacts or idols which were stolen and he brought back to India. So it's a pleasure to have Mr. Karthigeyan, who's also a simple man, down-to-earth person. So let's welcome Mr. Karthigeyan. Welcome, Mr. Karthigeyan. So it's a pleasure to have you.
So, thank you so much, Mr. Israel. Thank you so much. It's really a wonderful introduction, but I am not very sure whether I really deserve that, very, very generous welcome and appreciation you gave. But thank you anyhow for the compliment. It's really a pleasure to meet young students, aspiring officers on this a very innovative platform that the OTA has provided today. I look forward to a very, very, very meaningful and productive discussions today.
Thank you. And as I told you all, he's a humble person, so definitely he won't accept. Okay. Mr. Karthigeyan, just I want to know when this desire for Indian Foreign Service, when it started and why?
I don't know. Sometime in life, things take a turn which you are really not planned for. If you frankly ask me, about 20 years back when I was preparing for the exams, like all of us used to do in Tamil Nadu, all of us used to know only about two services, Indian Administrative Services and Indian Police Service. And obviously, the first choice, Israel has taken, Mr. Israel has taken, the first choice is for Indian Administrative Service. So I likewise, took it at that time. IAS was my, ambition at that time. Foreign Service, for some reason, was always there in the back of my mind. I do not know. As I said, sometimes life has, what life has got in store for you, you do not realize it. But then it was always there at the back of my mind. That's why I gave it as my number 2 option when appearing for the main exam. And there is one interesting thing I'll tell you. Maybe it happened, I think, in my 7th standard or 8th standard. I was studying in a school in Vellore. And at that time, there was a UN quiz competition. For the first time, I heard about an agency, an organization called United Nations. And then, I don't know, for some reasons, I appeared for that, a quiz competition, and I got a meritorious award. So perhaps, some kind of a, trigger, something happened at that time. Besides my father, he's a retired government servant. He used to always discuss the things beyond my age with me. The international affairs, political things. He was a very passionate reader. He remains a very passionate reader and a student of international affairs. Somewhere even at my very young age, he used to talk, and perhaps that kindled the interest in the international and geopolitical affairs. And later on, when it came to deciding on the options, unwittingly or unknowingly, perhaps, I decided on IFS as my second option. But I should be frank to admit that my first option was the administrative service. But now, after such a long time in the Indian Foreign Service, I think, if given a chance again, perhaps I may prefer IFS. so this is how I actually got into the Foreign Service. But then again, the journey is a very, very long journey. I do not know whether, like, there is enough time to talk about those journeys here, but suffice to say that it was a very interesting kind of a journey I had. Perhaps not an ideal journey, but, like, very interesting nevertheless, and something that has really, contributed to a very fulfilling kind of a career I have now.
Till 1990s, IFS was always held first choice amongst almost everyone.
Okay.
After that, a gradual change in trend happened that many started choosing IAS as first choice. However, even now, many of my own students at Officers IAS Academy AC, they put IFS as first choice. Now, many have this confusion. Who can choose IAS? Who can choose IFS? Because both are equal. And if you see, if you get into IAS or IFS, one cannot write this exam again without resigning. So, if some student wants to know whether I am suitable for Indian Foreign Service or whether I am suitable for Indian Administrative Service, what will be our advice?
See, again, Mr. Israel, I mean, this is basically a personal kind of a decision. It depends on the person, what he is looking for in terms of his aspiration and what is his basic attitude as a human being also. As a foreign service officer, I mean, you need to be prepared for a different kind of a life, because you end up spending most of your time outside India, and, like, you have to be prepared for a life which comes along with that. And the typical kind of a paraphernalia which you see associated with, services like IAS in India, it is almost totally absent here. And again, the domain, the field in which you're operating, the administrative officer and the foreign service officer operating, is entirely different. Of course, we both of us work towards the same objective, which is like furthering our national interest. You do it at home, we do it at, at missions abroad, I mean, in an external kind of, domain. But what goes into making of a very successful administrative officer and what goes into making of a very successful foreign service officer, it's slightly different. I mean, you come together up to the UPSC stage, and beyond that, like, you entirely, like, train and prepare for a different kind of a role in your, like, 30-40 years old career. As a foreign service officer, somebody, a student, an aspiring officer, somebody who is innately interested, who is naturally interested in the geopolitics, international affairs, and wants to represent the flag, wants to represent the country, and is ready to forego the kind of paraphernalia and the supporting system that is available to any other, equivalent officer in India, in IAS or IPS, but who wants to really kind of, make his mark on the world stage, represent the country, fly the flag, and participate actively in shaping up the geopolitics. That is an ideal person whom we are looking for in the foreign service. I mean, people can be shaped, but then there are certain inherent natural qualities also. If it is available, it enhances the, attractiveness of foreign service as a career to them. Obviously, people who want to make a difference to the people living there in India, I mean, on the ground, they would be obviously looking at IAS as the first option, because sitting here in Canberra or New York or Geneva, I mean, you would be obviously like touching the lives of people back home, but you would not be doing so in a direct way like an IAS officer or an IPS officer is able to do. So depending on what you want to do, what you're ready for, and what your natural aptitude is, people can take a choice. So it's really, at the end of it, I mean, a long and short of it is a personal choice. It cannot be generalized that, okay, people with this can go for this, or people with that can go for this choice. But I just laid out the general characteristics that is required or or desired in an IFS officer or in an IAS officer. Accordingly, the choices can be made by the officers.
I am your batchmate and a good friend of you also. So I want a candid answer. Do you regret not staying within our country?
See, I would say again, like, and as a friend, frankly, that kind of a feeling tends to be there in the early years. As I said, like, you know me, we had given IAS as our first option. So, I mean, after cracking these very tough exams, and like, coming almost very close. I was almost about to be given, the IAS, service, allotted that, but like, fell short by a few ranks. So that kind of a thing tends to linger on for the first perhaps few months in a more intense way, and then perhaps for the first couple of years. But after that, I'll tell you very frankly, after having spent 16 years in the foreign service, I'm really, really grateful to this service for giving me this such a wonderful opportunity to explore the way that very, very few people in the world, or very people in India can really do. And also, more importantly, in fact, most importantly, to represent the country and to play your own small part in the bigger scheme and on a global stage. This is an opportunity that is not available to many, to put it least. Of course, if you are in IAS and all, obviously, like there are other kind of, opportunities that come your way, and of course, other supporting systems that come your way. So these things, we cannot, be comparing ourselves with other services throughout. Of course, it is natural to compare when you get into the service. Maybe for the first 1-2 years, it tends to linger on. But then after a point of time, everybody gets set into the system. And truly today, after 16 years, I'm really grateful that I was given the foreign service as a career. Perhaps now, if you ask me to fill the form again, perhaps now I will be biased towards foreign service, and I'll be giving foreign service as first option. That's a very frank answer to me.
Yeah, in fact, few years before, those who are viewers, you should understand, IAS anyone can get, but IFS, even if you clear the exam, finally the Ministry of External Affairs will conduct an interview. 1 in 3 only will get selected. Okay, that was the ratio. Now, Mr. Karthigeyan, how frequently you can visit your hometown?
It is not so easy, and especially in the circumstances you are asking the question now. We don't really know whether we can visit anytime soon. But generally speaking, leave alone these extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves to be in. Generally speaking, we can come once during our posting, and that means like when you say a posting, it's like 3 years. So I can come like in the middle of it, 1.5 years. Now I have joined in Canberra as Deputy High Commissioner in April 2018, and it's like going to be like what, 2 years plus 3 months or so. And I visited for the first time after coming here, Vellore, my hometown, and my family, sometime in January. This new year I was at home. So you can imagine, like it's roughly like about halfway through your tenure you get a chance. But obviously, like if there are urgent circumstances, there are opportunities, and there are like avenues where you can make a quick visit if there is an emergency kind of a reason. But then when you are abroad, there are so many other like kind of work related situations which forbid you from traveling frequently. So we can say like in your career, like when you are abroad, posted abroad, you tend to roughly visit once in 3 years or so. Of course, at the end of the tenure, when you go back to India, or when you go to another station from here, you do get a short kind of a midterm, home leave. So you can make use of that home leave passage to, to go and visit your hometown before going to the next station.
Your parents, how frequently they can visit you? Definitely, always they can be with you. But I want to know whether parents are also given some pass, means free travel or something, or no, only your say wife, spouse and children only are part of that.
Yeah. See, that's again a question that will be lingering in the minds of many officers, future officers, I should say. The thing is that government gives a certain privileges for dependent members of the family. Whether your parents come under that dependence category, it is up to the individual circumstances. In my case, as I said, my father is a retired government servant. He's a pensioner, so he cannot be considered a dependent member of the family. So it is my spouse and my children who are considered as dependent members of the family in my case. But there are like colleagues of mine, like in whose case, like, parents, they come as dependents, and they do get to visit the, the officer, and certain kind of privileges, assistance are extended by the ministry to them as dependent members of the family. But again, to complete the story, I mean, when you asked how many times my parents have visited me, unfortunately, not it. They have
Okay,
not
okay.
visited me even once. And and
Oh,
and you also told me that I was the passport officer. I have given millions of passport under my stamp and seal, but my parents don't hold a passport.
okay,
They,
okay.
they tell me that I should visit them, and I should not bother about them visiting me.